In recent times, there's been a little bit of a negative sentiment towards high mileage training, calling it junk miles, people sharing success stories with lower mileage, or people getting into other training systems like the Norwegian threshold training. I believe part of this negative sentiment towards high mileage might come from the pendulum of what's popular in training kind of swinging away from the popularity of zone 2 and easy miles that we've kind of seen recently. But the thing is, the popularity of that, the zone 2 easy training, was a result of kind of a backlash against the 1990s style training in the US, which was really heavy on intervals and VO2 max work. So what's popular is always seeming to shift every 15 to 20 years, and that could be part of it. But another bigger factor, I think, is the idea of lower volume just seems attractive to people. To be able to run as fast or even faster off of less volume and less time put in. Because let's be real, high volume base training isn't the easiest or the most exciting type of training there is. We'd like to be able to do more with less. Less long miles, more shorter and faster work. Think about how many YouTube videos there are of elite athletes working out somewhere versus just going on a normal easy run. The workouts have a lot more appeal. They're sexier. When you're doing a workout, you feel like you're accomplishing more and improving more. And in the short term, yes, that's true. The issue though is that workouts will only help you as much as you've built a foundation for. You could start a training block going hard right out of the gate, working out hard 2 to 3 times per week, and you'd see a lot of improvement right away. But after 6 to 10 weeks, you'd kind of fall flat and have nowhere to go from there. And when we're talking workouts in this context, it's very race specific, hard intervals, VO2 max type sessions, that kind of thing. Think of these types of workouts as cashing out on your fitness. That fitness can either be a lot that you've built up over the course of months or even longer, or it can be a little because you cashed out too early and got impatient and wanted to work out hard earlier in your training than what would actually be ideal for you. Another popular analogy is the pyramid example. Those 6 to 10 weeks of very hard race-specific intervals is like a tip of a pyramid, and that tip of the pyramid is always going to be around the same size, but what can be changed is how big the base of the pyramid is. The bigger the base, the higher that tip of the pyramid will be. There's a reason that we call it base training. It's kind of based on that analogy. And the most important part of that base is getting a lot of volume of easy to moderate aerobic running. Arthur Lydiard had figured this out way back in the 1960s. I've covered this in past videos before, and the principle has been applied by almost any successful coach or athlete since then. If you look at athletes from the 1500 and beyond, the metric in training that has the largest correlation with how fast someone was going to run is the volume of training that they're doing. And it is not the only factor. I've talked in another video about how a base training needs to have some speed and strength components as well. But the reality is that's not the main focus, and anybody who's any good is probably going to be doing a lot of training, lots of volume. Even if they're not doing it right now, it's likely they may have had a period of training in the past that was very high on volume, and that kind of provides a long-lasting foundation that allows them to work out and do more work now because of the work they put in the past. And if you look at elite runners now, even guys who are low mileage are still going to be running 70 or 80 miles a week on the low end. And it might not be 15-mile single runs every day like Mark Wetmore was doing at Colorado back in the 90s. People are splitting runs up and doing a lot more doubles now and starting to incorporate like higher quality, like structured aerobic work like the Ingebrigtsens are. But overall, for anyone who's running fast, volume is still going to be fairly high, particularly in base training periods. And all this volume of training, even if it's relatively easy, is having a physiological effect. You know, people use the term junk miles, but unless you're either going way too fast that like the fatigue buildup is too much to recover from, or you're just going like ungodly slow, you're still going to get a good stimulus of mitochondrial development, capillary development, strengthening of the heart muscle, and neurological, like neuromuscular adaptation as well. And the more training, the more volume that can be done, the more you'll see improvements in all of those areas of your physiology. If you talk to guys who do some like high volume training, you'll see they improve in their running pretty quick, even just coming out of a base period with really not a whole lot of working out at all. And if it was only about workouts, like you wouldn't see that. Like that easy running, that moderate training is still having an effect. You're still improving. It's not just about the workouts. And the thing with high volume for the average runner, it's not just about getting like 100 miles a week. 100 miles for an elite athlete running 6 minutes per mile is going to be way more time training than someone running 100 miles a week at 8 minutes a mile. We talk about mileage, but really time is the most important metric. Most people seem to be able to max out at 10 to 12 hours per week. People who are really good and really trained might be able to push up to like 15, but you really don't see much more than that. But regardless of where your fitness is, in general, the best way to see like long-term sustainable improvements is to get as much volume as you can in that you can reasonably sustain. Riding the line of injury is a risky game, and the benefits that you see from pushing that far compared to just being off it a little bit are pretty marginal. And if you do get injured, you'll be out for a while and be missing out on training that you could have been doing, volume that you could have been getting in. Things like strength work, mobility work, injury prevention exercises, running mechanics work like drills and strides and short sprints, proper sleep and nutrition are all things that you can take care of and manage to be able to raise that ceiling of what you can handle, but what you're doing still needs to be manageable. And throughout training, as you get fitter, you can start to incorporate more faster things like progressions, sub-threshold runs, tempo runs, workouts during long runs. Lots of people will be doing that during a base training phase, just as long as nothing is above that anaerobic threshold. That's why the Ingebrigtsens are always blood lactate testing. They do not want to go over that line of anaerobic threshold during a base phase. They want to keep everything aerobic. So don't neglect the importance of volume. I did for a while and was focused more on workouts and other things without building that aerobic fitness first, and I didn't get the results that I wanted. High volume is simple, but it's kind of dull, kind of boring sometimes, but that type of work is usually the most important work that you can do, especially in the long term. Your aerobic system can be continuously developed, but it's a process that takes some time and requires some patience, but that time is going to pass anyway, so might as well make the most of it and make your future self thankful.